The Grand Hall of the Galactic Union was quiet, too quiet. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in a giant circle, their eyes fixed on the center where the final vote would be cast. The stars outside the transparent dome glowed softly, as if watching the event unfold. For the first time in history, the topic of discussion was not war, not trade, not peace treaties, it was Earth. The humans had once been welcomed into the Union with cautious hope, admired for their creativity, their drive, and their ability to adapt in the harshest of environments. But things had changed. Humanity had advanced faster than expected, learned alien languages in record time, and mastered technologies that took others centuries to understand. Some saw this as impressive, a sign of great potential. Others, however, saw danger. The fear grew slowly, like a whisper spreading through the halls of power. Humans were unpredictable. They asked questions no one dared to ask. They solved problems in ways that made other species uncomfortable. They didn't follow rules, they rewrote them. And so, the Council decided it was time to choose. Should Earth remain in the Union, or should it be exiled, forever cut off from the rest of the galaxy? One by one, the votes came in. The cold-blooded Valari cast the first yes, exile them. Then came the Ilari, wise but cautious, who also said yes. The machines from Core 17 voted yes without emotion. Even the peaceful Morokai, known for never taking sides, gave a quiet nod of agreement. The humans sat silently in their corner, represented by one calm ambassador named Mara Lin, who didn't speak a word as the numbers rose against her people. She had been prepared for this. Earth had known this vote would come someday. The fear of humanity's potential had always been stronger than the respect it earned. And as the final vote echoed through the chamber, it was clear Earth was exiled. No more trade. No more contact. No more help from the stars. The Union believed they had weakened humanity. They thought cutting Earth off would stop its rise. But they were wrong. So very wrong. Back on Earth, Marlin's message arrived before she did. It was a short one, sent through a private channel only the Earth Command could receive. It's done. We're alone. Begin Phase 1. There was no panic, no anger, only quiet understanding. The people of Earth looked up at the sky, now close to them, and instead of fear, they felt freedom. For the first time in years, they were not being watched, judged, or controlled. They were alone, and it was exactly what they needed. Hidden beneath the oceans, deep in the deserts, and high in the mountain bases, Earth's brightest minds had already been working on secret projects, ones they had never shared with the Union. They had unlocked pieces of technology that even the galaxy didn't fully understand. They had tested faster than light signals, clean energy cores, and living machines. Now, without the Union watching, they could push forward without limits. Earth turned inward, building something new, something powerful, not to attack, not to conquer, but to grow. The exile was meant to be a punishment, but to humanity, it was a gift in disguise. They would not beg to return. They would not try to force their way back. Instead, they would make the galaxy notice them again, but this time not by knocking on its door. No, humanity would make the galaxy come to them. The stars above no longer held judgment. Now they held opportunity. And in the shadows of Earth's quiet skies, something had already begun, something that would soon shake the entire universe. For years after Earth's exile, the galaxy moved on, thinking the humans had vanished into nothingness. The Galactic Union had cut Earth off, severing all communication lines, cutting trade routes, and imposing sanctions meant to crush their spirit. The Union leaders believed they had dealt with the problem. Humanity was no longer a threat. But what they failed to realize was that Earth, in its isolation, had not been idle. It was quiet, at first eerily quiet. The galaxy continued to expand, new discoveries were made, new alliances were forged, and yet Earth remained silent. Not a single ship left the planet. Not a single communication reached the stars. It seemed like humanity had retreated into the shadows, as if they had accepted their fate and moved on. But inside Earth's atmosphere, a different story was unfolding. Deep beneath the oceans and inside the mountain bases, human engineers, scientists, and tech experts were quietly working on something no one outside Earth had ever seen. It wasn't just the usual advancements. These weren't simple weapons or tools for defense. No, humanity was building something far more significant, something that could alter the very fabric of the galaxy. They'd been preparing for this moment long. Calculated move, a way to hide the vast progress humanity had made while the galaxy went about its business. It was a waiting game. No one had expected the humans to thrive, to innovate, or to grow stronger in isolation. They thought Earth's people would wither under the pressure. But they were wrong. The silence lasted for years, and as the galaxy went on, whispers began to stir in the deeper reaches of the Union. Strange signals had been detected near the edge of Earth's solar system. At first, they were faint, almost nothing at all. A flicker of energy here, a brief pulse there. But the signals were growing stronger, more frequent, and more complex. The Union's scientists couldn't ignore it. They began to wonder if Earth had indeed been up to something all this time. They sent out ships to investigate, but each one came back empty-handed, reporting no signs of unusual activity. Yet, the signals persisted. It wasn't just one. There were several. They were like ripples in the water, spreading from Earth's system, too organized to be natural. The Union tried to write it off as some random cosmic event, but deep down, they all knew something was coming. No one could explain it, but they could feel it in their bones, the quiet before the storm. Humanity, once thought to be broken, once thought to be forgotten, was hiding something. And soon, the galaxy would have to face the consequences of their decision. Earth, it seemed, had been waiting for the right moment, and the right moment was fast approaching. As the galaxy continued to function as usual, the stars themselves seemed to dim just a little, as if preparing for what was to come. Then, the storm hit swift, unexpected, and far more powerful than anyone could have anticipated. The signals Earth had been sending for years suddenly turned into something else, something far more complex. They weren't just simple bursts of energy anymore. They were structured, encoded messages so advanced that they made the galaxy's finest technologies look like ancient relics. The messages were full of data, full of blueprints and calculations that no one, not even the Union's brightest minds, could fully comprehend. But one thing was clear: they were from Earth. And they weren't just messages. They were an invitation. Earth was offering something to the galaxy, something that no one had expected: access to a new kind of energy, something limitless, something beyond the understanding of even the oldest races. The invitation was not a plea for help. It was not a request for forgiveness. It was a declaration. Earth was opening the door to a new future, one that the galaxy had not anticipated. The Union's reaction was swift but mixed. Some races were excited, thinking that Earth had discovered something that could revolutionize their worlds. Others, particularly those who had voted for Earth's exile, were furious. How dare the humans reach out again? How dare they offer something to the galaxy when they had been cast out? The Union debated fiercely. Diplomats and ambassadors from all over the galaxy were called in to discuss the situation. Some were eager to explore what Earth had offered, believing it could bring prosperity to all. Others were cautious, worried that this was a trap, that Earth had developed something dangerous. But no matter how much they argued, they couldn't ignore one undeniable fact: Earth had something they didn't. Earth had unlocked a secret that no one else in the galaxy had even considered. And Earth had chosen to share it on their terms. The silence had ended. The calm before the storm was over. And the galaxy was about to be shaken to its core by what came next. But no one, not even the Union, could have predicted how the invitation would change everything. Earth had been exiled, forgotten by the stars. But now, it was the center of attention once again. And the storm was just beginning. As the galaxy waited, a single truth remained: Earth had never been broken. It had only been waiting for the right moment to remind the universe who it was. And soon, the galaxy would have to face the consequences of their decision. Humanity's silence had ended, and the storm was about to sweep through the stars. No one would escape it. No one would be untouched. And the galaxy, for the first time in a long while, would remember the power of Earth. The stars that once seemed so distant and unyielding were now trembling with uncertainty. It had been days since Earth's sudden transmission had reached the Union, and the galaxy had yet to fully comprehend the weight of the message. It had come like a silent wave, unnoticed at first, but now it was impossible to ignore. The transmission was not just data or a simple communication, it was a challenge, a puzzle, a promise. The message itself was not like anything the Union had ever seen. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a plea for help. It was an invitation to explore a power, a secret, that no other civilization in the galaxy had ever dared to uncover. It wasn't an offer of trade, nor a proposal of peace. It was an unveiling of something far more mysterious, far more dangerous. "We found it," the message began, simple words that had left every mind in the galaxy buzzing with questions. "We've unlocked the source." The source. The galaxy had no idea what that meant. No one had ever heard of it. Earth had always been the young and brash species in the eyes of the Union, unpredictable and reckless. But now they had something the Union didn't, a secret that no one else had even considered. The transmission came with more data, more codes, but it wasn't just technical information, it was something else entirely. Maps, blueprints, schematics that detailed the location of the source and the method of accessing it. But there was something odd about the message. It wasn't just a simple set of coordinates or instructions. It was encrypted in such a way that only those with specific knowledge could decipher it. It was clear Earth had made a discovery that was not meant to be fully understood by anyone else just yet. The Union leaders, especially those who had voted for Earth's exile, were furious. How dare Earth hide this power, this knowledge from them? For centuries, the Union had been the dominant force in the galaxy. They controlled resources, trade, and technology. They were the keepers of the stars. Yet, here was Earth, a planet they had cast aside, offering something far more valuable than they could have ever imagined. "They are testing us," some said. "They are playing a dangerous game." Others were less sure. There were whispers among the more curious and open-minded. Representatives that maybe this wasn't a test, it was a plea for recognition. Perhaps Earth wasn't just offering a power to the galaxy, but showing them that they were more than capable of standing on their own. The message did not speak of revenge, nor of conquest. It did not demand allegiance. It simply offered the knowledge to change everything if the galaxy was willing to accept it. But who could be trusted with such power? The debate raged across the Union. Some factions were eager to explore the source, believing it could be the key to a new era of prosperity and understanding. Others, driven by fear, called for immediate action. They wanted to destroy the transmission to prevent any further contact with Earth. And yet, amid all the uncertainty, one fact became clear to everyone who heard the message: Earth had never been so sure of itself. The humans had always been known for their boldness, but now they were operating on a level beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were not just a species looking to survive, they were looking to lead. And the source was the key to that leadership. Earth had quietly waited in the shadows for years, building and advancing without interference. They had created something the galaxy hadn't even dreamed of, and now they were offering it not as a weapon, but as a gift, with no strings attached. What was Earth's true intention? No one could say for certain, but the implications were massive. The transmission had left many questions unanswered. Was this a warning? A chance for redemption? Or was it simply an introduction to something far greater than anyone could comprehend? The Union leaders argued fiercely behind closed doors. No one wanted to admit it, but some were beginning to see Earth in a new light. They had underestimated humanity for so long. Perhaps this was not the time to exile them, but to approach them with respect for what they had achieved in isolation. But still, there was fear. The galaxy had been built on a delicate balance of power. What would happen if the humans discovered something that could tip that balance? And then, as if to amplify the mystery, another part of the message arrived: a simple line, encoded and fragmented, breaking through all other communications. "We are ready. Are you?" It was a challenge, a call to action. It wasn't a question the galaxy could ignore. Earth had not just discovered the source, they had prepared to wield it. The message didn't just speak of Earth's newfound power, it implied that the humans were already in control of it. The knowledge, the technology, the source of limitless energy, they had it all. And now they were waiting for the galaxy to respond. No one could know for sure what Earth's next move would be. Would they open the door and let others join them? Or would they use the source to rise beyond the reach of the Union? The silence that followed the message was suffocating. The galaxy held its breath. The Union was no longer in control of the narrative. The humans, once exiled and forgotten, were now the ones calling the shots. The power had shifted, and no one knew what it meant for the future. But one thing was certain, Earth had become the center of the galaxy's attention, and no one could ignore them any longer. The storm that had been quietly brewing for years had arrived. The galaxy had never been more uncertain. And as Earth stood at the center of it all, waiting for a response, the question lingered in the air. What would the galaxy choose? Would they answer the call, or would they allow fear to push them away from the humans and the source? The choice, it seemed, would determine the fate of the galaxy itself. The galaxy had never been more unsettled. For centuries, Earth had been nothing more than a memory, a faint echo in the records of the Union, a world exiled, forgotten, left to fade away. Yet now, a new reality was unfolding. The message from Earth had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, rippling through the stars like a sudden storm. What was once thought to be an insignificant, isolated planet had revealed itself to be far more powerful, far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The humans had been hiding something, and now the entire galaxy was forced to face the truth. Earth was no longer just a forgotten world. It was a force to be reckoned with. The invitation to the source had left everyone wondering what the humans had truly discovered. The Union's leaders, once so confident in their control, now found themselves scrambling for answers. Earth had not only unlocked a secret, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy, but they had done so with such secrecy and skill that no one had seen it coming. Some whispered that humanity had made a deal with forces beyond their understanding, that the power they now wielded could not simply be explained by science. Others feared that Earth's sudden reappearance was not a return, but a warning. The Union was divided. There were those who saw this as an opportunity, a chance to unite with Earth and harness the source together, to advance in ways they never thought possible. But there were others, those who could not forgive the past, who remembered the exile and the humiliation of losing control over Earth. For them, Earth's return was not a chance for peace, but a threat that had to be eliminated. The debate raged for days, with ambassadors and leaders from every corner of the galaxy gathering to discuss the implications of Earth's message. But as the galaxy argued among itself, Earth remained silent. The humans were no longer speaking. They had made their offer, and now they were waiting for the galaxy to decide. And still, the question lingered. What had Earth found? The first real sign that something had changed came when the ships of the Union, sent to investigate Earth's transmission, returned not with reports of hostile forces or an alien invasion, but with something far more disturbing. The humans had already begun to test the source. The ships had witnessed humanity using the power to reshape their world. Entire cities had been transformed in a matter of days, forests and oceans restored to their original beauty, technology that had once been centuries behind the galaxy's advancements, now rivaling the most powerful fleets. Earth was no longer the backwater planet it had once been. It was a beacon of innovation, a symbol of humanity's incredible potential. The Union, despite their best efforts to dismiss the power, knew they could not ignore it any longer. What could they do now? Earth had already proven that it was not just another species waiting to be integrated into the Union structure, it was a world that had the ability to lead, to reshape the galaxy. And it was doing so on its own terms. The thought that Earth had spent so long in isolation, quietly developing something that could alter the very fabric of the galaxy, sent a shiver down the spines of those who had once believed that humanity was weak, their future doomed. The forgotten world had returned, and it had returned stronger than anyone had anticipated. But the true shock came when Earth made its next move. They opened the doors to the galaxy, allowing access to the source, but only under their conditions. They didn't demand anything. There was no ransom, no trade. They simply made it clear any civilization that wanted to partake in the power of the Source had to prove that they could handle it, that they were worthy of its potential. For the first time in history, Earth wasn't asking for permission, it was setting the terms. This new Earth, once exiled, now stood at the center of the galaxy, offering its power to those who could meet its challenge. But for the galaxy's leaders, that was the hardest pill to swallow. Earth was no longer desperate for the approval of the Union or any other species. They had already surpassed them. And in their eyes, that made all the difference. Yet, not all was peaceful. Fear began to grow in the darker corners of the galaxy, where old grudges ran deep. Those who had voted for Earth's exile, the ones who had condemned them to isolation, now found themselves facing the consequences of their choices. A movement was quietly growing, a faction of former enemies who believed that Earth's rise would shift the balance of power too far. They argued that the Source was a danger, something that, in the wrong hands, could destroy entire civilization. But what they didn't realize was that Earth had already anticipated this fear. The Source, as the humans had explained, was not a weapon, it was a force of creation, not destruction. It could restore life, it could heal, and it could fuel the next phase of galactic advancement. But it could also be a tool for disaster if misused. That's why Earth had insisted on the challenge. Only those civilizations that could prove they had the wisdom, restraint, and integrity to use the Source responsibly would be granted access. The storm was brewing, the tension growing. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. Some were eager to embrace the humans, to learn from them, and stand by them as they embarked on a new era of galactic unity. But others were more cautious, still remembering the time when Earth had been little more than a speck in the vastness of space, a world dismissed as insignificant. To them, the return of Earth was a terrifying reminder that the galaxy was not the all-powerful force it had once believed itself to be. And somewhere, deep within Earth's core, the humans watched, waiting to see how the galaxy would respond to their offer. They had opened the doors to a new future, but the galaxy's decision would determine if they were ready to walk through those doors. Earth was no longer forgotten. Unknowingly created something the universe was not prepared for, a civilization that had grown stronger in silence, that had learned to survive alone, and that had returned not with vengeance, but with vision. The Source, the mysterious force discovered and refined by Earth, had become more than just a new technology or energy. It was a symbol of transformation. The Union, once the most powerful and feared alliance in the stars, now found itself unsure of its position. For the first time in centuries, they were no longer in control. Earth had flipped the balance with nothing more than time, patience, and knowledge. Delegates from hundreds of star systems arrived one by one, each seeking a seat at the table Earth had now built. There were no threats, no wars, no demands for submission. Instead, Earth's representatives offered something even more powerful: cooperation, respect, and a new way forward. But there was a condition. Earth made it clear that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. This new galactic order would not be built on fear or control. It would not favor the strong over the weak. Every civilization, no matter how advanced or simple, would be given equal opportunity to grow, to learn, and to shape the future together. The Source would be shared, but not freely given. Each species would have to pass the trials, not of strength, but of heart tests of wisdom, empathy, and understanding. Only those who could prove they would use the Source to build, not destroy, would be allowed to hold its power. Some scoffed at this, believing it to be weakness, but others saw the truth. Earth had learned that real strength was not in weapons or ships, but in choices. And those who chose to stand with Earth were already seeing the changes. Planets once dying were now full of life. Trade routes once full of pirates and warships were now guarded by neutral protectors trained by humans, peacekeepers, not conquerors. The very idea of leadership was changing, and many old powers resisted. Secret meetings were held in the shadows. Some feared that Earth's way would erase their traditions, their control, their legacy. Plans were made, ships gathered, and whispers of rebellion floated through the stars. But Earth, with quiet certainty, had already planned for this. Before the attack could be launched, Earth revealed another truth, one that shook even the bravest hearts. They had not just discovered the source, they had begun to understand its origin. It was not created by humans. It had been buried, hidden, waiting. A force older than the galaxy itself, linked to the very birth of time and life. And now it had chosen to speak through the humans. This wasn't just about power anymore. It was about destiny. The source had awakened for Earth because humanity, in its suffering, had grown into something pure. They had lost their place, been cast out, but instead of becoming monsters, they became guardians. And that was what the source needed. The final message Earth delivered to the galaxy was simple. We are not your rulers. We are your equals. Stand with us, and we will build a future that remembers all, protects all, and leaves no one behind. But try to destroy this peace, and you will not be facing just humans. You will be facing something much older, much wiser, and far beyond any of us. The warning was not shouted, but it echoed across systems louder than any weapon. The rebellions that had been planned vanished like smoke. Those who still clung to the past now found themselves forgotten, while those who embraced the new order thrived. New alliances formed not out of fear, but hope. The source began to flow through chosen systems, lifting civilizations into a golden age. Diseases vanished, hunger became history, and energy was no longer a reason for war. Children on distant moons now studied Earth's story as a lesson of resilience. They didn't see humans as monsters or conquerors, but as the race that changed everything by refusing to give up. Earth, once exiled and alone, had returned not to destroy the galaxy, but to heal it. And though there were still dangers out there, still mysteries in the dark corners of the stars, one truth had been made clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. A new order had begun, not with blood, but with wisdom, and the stars, for the first time in a long time, were finally silent and at peace.